Failure to prepare, as they say, is preparing to fail. Hello and welcome to the March or Die Show today. This is the show where we do our best every single episode to give you the perspectives and principles you need to march when it would be easier to stay where you are and die. My name is Jeremy Stolniker. I am your host, and I'm excited to share some things with you today. We are starting a new year. We're still in January, coming into the end of January, but still in January, getting started in a new year. And as we do every year, I like to start the year with some principles, some thoughts, some perspectives that can help you begin to move forward. Last week, we talked about the 4 C's. If you follow the podcast and you listened last week, the 4 C's from Hebrews chapter 1 or chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. And again, 4 perspectives that you need to understand in order to move forward. And I hope that was a help to you. Today, we're going to look at 4 other principles that you really need to understand. And again, put these together. This is as you look toward the next 11 or 12 months and you're starting to build some things out. What's the difference between success and failure? What is the difference between accomplishing your goals and not accomplishing your goals? What is the difference between getting it done and looking back over a year where you wish you had gotten it done? Well, there are some things, and it's important to understand these things. And we're going to talk about them today. We're going to as I mentioned last week, as we continue the podcast this year, I'm excited about having some great guests on. We've got some good guests lined up already. And man, I'm not going to share names right now because we're still working on some things, but we've got some great things on the horizon for you. Excited about that. We're going to do a lot of in-person stuff this year and some other content to learn more about the guests that we have on. But we're going to jump into this today. Before I get there, if you have not yet subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Very important you do that. Do that right away. Do it right now. And that would be fantastic. And then once you subscribe, share this content out with others. And I trust that it will be a help to you. So we take a look at this again today, kind of a continuing conversation from last week. Last week, we talked about what? We talked about the crowd. There's people who have gone before us, and we need to understand that and look to them and learn from them. There is a cause. That is the reason we're doing what we're doing. Your purpose, your cause, what God's called you to do is different than what he's called me to do. But we have a cause. If that's not clear in our minds, then we're going to drop the ball. And we need to know there are people who have gone before us. We're not the first ones to walk this path. There is a reason. There's something that propels us forward or carries us forward. But there's also a cost. That cost is laying aside the weight and the sin. The Bible tells us there in Hebrews chapter 12. There are some things we need to get rid of, some things we need to cut out of our lives if we're going to fully be what God has created us to be. And then there was the 4th C last week. I think you probably remember it. There was Christ. Jesus Christ, looking unto Jesus, the Bible says, the author and finisher of our faith. He is our example. So when we become wearied and faint in our minds, as verse number 3 of Hebrews 12 says, we look to Jesus who has gone before us. And we're very thankful for that example. So we look to the crowd, those who've gone before us, the cause, the reason we're doing what we're doing. We acknowledge the cost, and then we pursue Jesus. A couple other things I want to share with you today, and those were all C words last week. These are all P words this week, trying to make it as easy for you to understand, or not to understand. You can understand them. I'm not smart or deep. To remember, easy as possible for you to remember. But what do you need to press forward? A couple other things. All right. First P word is this. It is preparation. You need to prepare. This is where, I think so many of us lose it right here, right? Like preparation. Preparing typically is not the fun part. There are people who like to prepare. There are people who like to practice and people who like to train. I've run a few ultra marathons, these long endurance races. And as part of that, trying to learn and understand, I read articles from professionals and try to learn from them. And it's interesting when I come across someone who says, even if I couldn't race, even if I couldn't do the events, I would still train. Training is what I love to do. It's getting out and the grind all the time. It's the preparation. That's not normal. Most people are not that way. Most people aren't super into preparing without some goal in mind. And in the physical realm, maybe it's a race or a competition. Maybe in school, it's learning everything that you can learn so you can take a test and do well. Maybe beyond that, go to a college or get into a profession. Typically, preparation leads to something, and it's the something we really want. But in order to get to the thing that we really want, we have got to prepare. We need to be ready. We need to do now what will be required of us later. What does preparation entail? Well, it entails knowing where you're going. We're going to talk about that a little bit here in just a second, but knowing where you're going. So having an idea of where you're going. At the beginning of a year like this one, it's a perfect time because you sit down and maybe you look back to last year and evaluate what you didn't accomplish and what you'd like to accomplish this year. Maybe it's some new goals this year. Whatever that is, you know where you're going, roughly, generally. It doesn't have to be specific, but you know where you're going. I'm going over there. I'm working to accomplish that thing over there. I want to get to this place or do this thing. This is what I want. And then you work backwards from there. If I want to, let's say, run a 100-mile race, I'm getting ready for a 100-mile race right now, so that's on my mind. I'm getting ready for a 100-mile race. All right, that's the goal. That's where I'm going. Now, I know that certain things will be required when I run this 100-mile race. There's stuff I'm going to need. So I need to order that stuff so I have it when I need it. Some of it's nutrition. Some of it's things like a headlight or a headlamp or the right socks or the right shoes. I'm going to need that stuff when I run this 100-mile race. Preparation means before I get there, I'm laying all of that out. I'm purchasing it if I need to purchase it. I'm packing it so I can take it with me. I'm getting ready. All right. Physically, in order to get through a 100-mile race, I need to be physically prepared. I need to find a plan that helps me get prepared and begin to follow that plan. Preparing for a 100-mile race often goes 6 months out, maybe more than that if you're running all the time or preparing all the time. But 6 months out, you're looking down the road and saying, all right, I need to do these things and hit these goals physically every month in order to be prepared. Maybe there's a specific time you want to finish that race in. You get what I'm saying. You prepare backwards. That's the goal. These are the things I need to do before I get to the goal or attempt to accomplish the goal. Again, it can be any number of things. It can be academic. It can be career-wise. It can be in relationships. But know what you're trying to accomplish and then work backwards. How much time do I have? How much energy do I need to expend? What are the resources will be involved? Put all of that together and prepare. Failure to prepare, as they say, is preparing to fail. There are so many people that are good in the moment, but because of a lack of preparation, they fail in the moment. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So what do you need to succeed this year? What do you need to press forward? Number one, preparation. Know where you're going, and then begin working backwards from there. The second P word is this: perspective. What is perspective? Perspective is clarity around the situation. This is so important. I'm going to say this on every one of these. This is the most important one. All four of these are the most important. But preparation is super important. You are not going to succeed in a meaningful way without the right preparation. But if you don't have the right perspective is an encompassing of things like, why am I doing this? We talked about last week, the cause. What's the reason for this? Who's involved? What are the dangers? What are the obstacles or the challenges? What are the resources that I have available to me? Emotionally, what's actually going on here? Not what do I feel like, but what is actually happening here? What will happen if I don't accomplish that goal or get to that place? What will happen if I do? What is the cost that will be required? We talk about the cost. What is the cost? I need to have the right perspective. If you go into an overwhelming challenge this year, looking at everything through those rose-colored glasses, as they say, or looking only at the good or the benefit and not the challenges or the difficulty, you will stop when things become difficult. Now, this is not about being overly negative. This is not about kind of looking at things from the perspective of it probably won't happen or it's going to be very hard. This is not a downer thing. It's just having a clear view of what you're actually getting into. Again, we'll use the example of a 100-mile race because, like I said, that's what's on my mind. If you decide you want to run a 100-mile race, you can look at that and think, man, that's going to be in a beautiful location. It's going to be in a place that I'd like to visit, even if I wasn't going to do a 100-mile race. And getting done with a 100-mile race has got to feel so good. And it could be amazing to be able to tell my friends I did this 100-mile race, right? There are all of these things that you can put into that. And you can look at it very, very positively, overly positive. And then you get to the 100-mile race and you realize, first of all, 100 miles is a lot further than it sounds. It sounds far. It's a lot further than it sounds on your feet. You're going to get tired. You're going to get hungry. You may have stomach issues because now you're spending so much time running and moving and exerting, also trying to eat at the same time or consume calories. You didn't experience that feeling before. You didn't know what that was about. You didn't understand maybe what it means to run through the night. All of these other factors come into play. But if you only look at the good, you don't have the right perspective. So how do you gain the right perspective on something like that? Well, preparation is a big part of that. You begin to train. Maybe you're not training up to 100 miles, but you're putting in some time and some distance and some effort and practicing those things that you're going to need to do. You're talking to people that have done it. This is big. You're talking to people that have done it. I've done big races like this in the past, and I started by asking people, hey, what's it like? What'd you learn? What's important? What do I need to know? For something like a race like this, I can watch documentaries and I can listen to podcasts and I can read articles, learning everything that I can. Why? To get the right perspective, to understand what's actually going on, what the real challenges are and the limitations that I might have and how I really do need to prepare. You need to have the right perspective. We could think about this in a relationship sense. You're married and you want to have a wonderful marriage, as we all should. This year, you want to have a better marriage than you've ever had before. You need to begin preparing. That's doing things different than you've done before, so you can have something you've never had. You begin to put the right pieces in place, but you need to have a clear perspective. Things like, if hurt has happened in the past, maybe I need to get some counsel or some help. I can't just change my behavior and expect my spouse to respond to that. Maybe some other things need to come into play. Perhaps I need to talk to some married couples or to some counselors, to some people that can give me the right perspective on how to be in a better place at the end of this year than I am right now. Gaining the right perspective. That ties into preparation. I'm preparing, that is setting a goal and working backwards. I'm getting the right perspective, a clear picture, a clear view that involves other people. And then number 3, this is the pursuit. Now, it sounds funny to say, if you want to accomplish something, you need to do it. But man, if you want to accomplish something, you need to do it. Here's the thing, and it's crazy. Preparing can be overwhelming and difficult. It can be, and there, as I mentioned, there are a lot of people that just don't like to prepare. But once you start to prepare, you can kind of get into the rhythm of preparing. The thing about preparing is you're getting ready for the event without actually dealing with the event itself. The event or the goal, the challenge, whatever it is you're working toward will involve probably, if it's worthwhile, some risk, some emotional challenges and turmoil, maybe a little bit of anxiety, maybe some pushback. There will be some things that come with accomplishing that goal that will be unpleasant. When you're in the process of preparing, it's almost like you're accomplishing the goal, but without the emotional or physical, psychological, or other challenges associated with it. It's crazy how many people can get so caught up in preparing that they never get to the point of doing, or so caught up in gaining the right perspective. Well, I need to talk to more people or read more things or do more stuff or research more or go deeper. I need to have a full view. And again, I just said, you need to have the right perspective, but there comes a moment in time where the preparation is done. The perspective that you're going to get has been gained. And now it is time for pursuit. That is application, the application of training, taking your preparation and taking that perspective and putting it into play. It's amazing to me how many times in my own life I've done everything right leading up to the execution or the pursuit of the goal. I find comfort in getting close, but the risk or the fear or whatever of doing the thing keeps me from taking that next most important step. I've heard it said that when you share a goal out loud, you say something like, I'm going to run a 100-mile race. There is a very similar chemical response in your body and in your brain just speaking that as there is in actually accomplishing it. And then if you say it out loud, there are people in your social circle that will congratulate you. Man, that's awesome. You're doing that 100-mile race. That's amazing. I could never do that. So you're getting social proof and social approval, and you're feeling good chemically. You're feeling good in your mind. You're feeling good because of what people are saying. You're getting a lot of the benefits without actually doing the thing. And at the end of the day, if you haven't taken that next big step, you haven't really accomplished anything. Preparation, perspective, absolutely essential, but worthless without pursuit. Once you have come to the point where it's time to execute, your preparation and your perspective, done. Now it's time to go. Are you doing the thing you said you were going to do? You laid out a timeline. You put all of the pieces together. You've done everything you could do. Now you need to execute. The final P is this: perseverance. Perseverance. That is character. It's consistently doing the right thing without quitting. If a goal is worth accomplishing, it's a big goal. If it's worth accomplishing, there will be difficulty in the accomplishment of that goal. You've done as much preparation as you possibly could. You will miss something that you probably should have seen. You'll do your best to gain the right perspective. You're going to be one or two perspectives short. There will be some things you didn't expect. You're still going to execute, even though it may be scary or big or overwhelming. You're going to do the thing. You're going to pursue. But so often the difference between success and failure is perseverance. I've said this before, and I absolutely believe it. Perseverance in our day and age, it's almost a superpower because so few people are willing to persevere through difficulties. People quit. They quit on their marriages and other relationships. They quit on their job when things get hard or kind of go sideways. They quit on the goals they set in December or early January. There is a day recognized as the day most people quit their New Year's resolutions, the second Friday in January. Quitting day. My kids told me about this because they learned about it in high school class. They're talking about goal setting and quitting day. And then I heard this in some other places, read a little bit about it. It is recognized the second Friday in February as the day most people quit pursuing their New Year's resolutions. Why? Well, it may have been a lack of preparation or a lack of perspective, a lack of just doing the thing, pursuit. Most of the time, though, it's a lack of perseverance. A lack of perseverance. Those goals are set often out of a need. Those goals are set from a place of nobility, a noble purpose. Those goals, if accomplished, would make one's life better. But at the first sign of difficulty, fatigue, pushback, an obstacle, a trial, something overwhelming, what happens? We quit. I'm thankful that in life, success does not go to the perfect, Success doesn't go to the one who never makes a mistake. Success goes to the one who perseveres, to the persistent. Success is experienced by the one who sets a goal and then works through whatever difficulties present themselves along the way toward accomplishing that goal. Success is found when we say, I've done everything I can to prepare. Maybe not everything I should, but everything I can. I'm out of time. I've talked to the people I know to talk to. I've read the things I know to read. I've done what I know to do. I've got some perspective. I started, and then it got hard. But when it got hard, I kept moving forward. This is the March or Die podcast. And again, if you've been listening to this podcast for any length of time, you've heard the March or Die story that I like to tell about that day in Iraq on the bridge. I have 5 principles that I've drawn from that, and I talk about those often. But this idea of marching when it would be easier to stay where you are and die, I say that all the time. What does it mean? Well, it means that most of the pursuits in life bring us to a place where it would be easier to just say, this is as far as I'm going to go. I quit. And the crazy thing is, in a lot of relationships and a lot of jobs and a lot of other areas of our lives, we can quit on the inside and keep going through the motions on the outside. And most people won't be able to tell that we're dead. But if you're not moving forward with faith and purpose and intent, for all practical purposes, you're no longer living. When I say march or die, I don't mean that in the physical sense, but I absolutely mean it in the spiritual and the emotional and the relational sense. When you hit those obstacles, you hit those trials, those difficulties, take the next step. And then take the one after that, and take the one after that, and take the one after that, and keep moving forward. Because it is in perseverance, it is in pushing through in the middle of the pursuit that brings you to a place of success. Listen, I believe, as I talked about last week, that God has a plan for each one of our lives. He has a purpose, He has a plan, He has a call. That path that He's put us on. I talked about this last week. We need to realize some people have gone before us, and there is a reason, and there is a cost, and there is a Christ that we should pursue. All of those are true. But if there's not something in you that is willing to acknowledge, I've done what I can do, I've seen it the way I need to see it, and talk to the people I need to talk to, and I've started the thing, but now I just need to keep going. If that doesn't exist in you, the principle of perseverance, then you may get a little bit further than you've ever been. You may get a little bit further than the other person. But eventually, you're going to fail to accomplish all that God has set before you. It's the reason so many people with so much potential and so much skill and opportunity and resource fail to make the difference in this world that they are equipped to make. These 4 pieces, very simple, not anything new, not anything life-changing or life-altering. If in January you want to listen to a podcast on how to have a good year, you can find about 100 of them, maybe more. I don't want to just add to the noise. I do, however, want to serve as a reminder. God does have something special for you. God does have a plan for you and a purpose. There are some areas in your life. Maybe it's the physical areas. Maybe you need to get healthy this year. Maybe it is a relationship that needs work. You can have a relationship at the end of the year so much better than the one you have right now. Maybe it's with your spouse or with your kids. Maybe you need to pursue some area of education to get to a level you've never gotten to before. Maybe you need to work some area of your job to advance. I don't know what it is for you, but there's something on your heart and something on your mind that you might say, just to dismiss it, it would be nice if I could do that. That's very dismissive. If it would be nice if you did that, if it impacted your life or would impact your life if you accomplish that thing, set the goal, know where you're going, work backwards in preparation, get the right perspective, enter into pursuit, that is, go after it, and then decide before the trials come, before the difficulty presents itself, that you will not quit. I hope that is a help and a challenge to you today. We're going to get some other people on the podcast in the next couple of weeks, and looking forward to some great conversations. Some of those will be remote. If you watch this podcast on YouTube, which I would highly encourage you to do, and go ahead and also subscribe there. Hard word to say, subscribe. Subscribe. That'd be fantastic. We've got other good content on the YouTube channel. But some of the guest interviews that we have will be remote, like we have done quite a bit on this show. But this year, we're going to do a whole bunch of in-person interviews in our studios in Texas. So excited about that as well. So join the journey, and we'll look forward to learning some really important and helpful things together. Thank you so much for listening. Really do appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you next time. Have a good week.